Hi, everybody. So, welcome to episode one, Meet Your Host. Just a warning that after our little introductions, we will get into some spoilers in this episode. So, if you're a first time watcher, I recommend skipping this episode and going straight into our recap of episode one, Something Wicca This Way Comes. All right, so let's get started. Do you want to introduce yourself first, or do you want me to?
You can introduce yourself first, and then I'll go with my introduction.
Okay. So I'm Jess. I'm 26 years old. I'm a writer and adjunct professor. I teach English and writing classes to first-year college students. I've also taught a class on critically reading and writing about news and media, and I've taught creative writing classes at the high school level as well. I'm a longtime Charmed fan. My mom was a huge fan of the show when it was coming out. So I remember watching episodes with her, both live and in reruns while I was growing up. I have the DVDs of every season. And I think I did my first full watch through of the show in middle school. And then I've probably seen it from beginning to end 2 or 3 times since then. The last time I watched it, I think I was a junior in college. I'm really excited for this time around because it's the first time I'll be watching the show where I'm older than Phoebe and Piper were in season 1. Phoebe's always been my favorite character, and I'm looking forward to seeing as I do this rewatch if that's still true or if that's kind of changed now that I'm older.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm Mia. I'm Jess's younger sister. Currently, I'm 17 years old. I'm a senior in high school, and I've been watching this show my whole life as well. My mom I grew up on it, watching it with her as well, and I think I've watched it all the way through, probably at least 6 times in my life. I don't know, maybe even more, because it's just always been one of my favorite shows. I also love Phoebe. She's like my favorite character. I think from the beginning I've related to her the most, in a sense. She's more like that wild child, and I feel like I've always been described like that too. So that's my favorite character, and I'm excited to watch it again and actually, analyze things a little more.
Yeah, definitely. I think every time I've watched, like before this, I've just kind of watched for the sake of watching. So kind of really figuring out those key parts that like draw me to the show and the characters is something I'm really interested in doing in this watch with you.
Exactly. I love all of them, but I think anytime I've watched it, Phoebe's, I don't know if it's just because it was set in my mind from the start, but she always just comes out being the shining star to me. Like, I love her so much. I think she's such a great character. And everything, when Paige comes in, I remember when we were younger, my Caitlin, our other sister, and I used to watch it together with our friend, and she didn't like, neither of them liked when Paige came along. They were like very upset because they loved Prue so much, and I loved Prue too, but like, I don't know, I think it was perfect. Like, it changed because as Piper's character started to develop, she became more of this mature person, and so did Phoebe. So she was less like the younger child, and it was nice that she moved to the middle and Piper moved to the oldest. Like, it kind of seemed like they were fitting into their new places already. So
yeah, definitely. And like, speaking of Prue, one thing I noticed just watching the first episode, I mean, we'll get to this when we do our episode 1 recap, but like, I found myself liking Prue a lot more this like watch than I have in past ones.
I totally felt the same way. I watched the first episode, for our recap and everything, and she's such a powerful person. Like, from the start, she comes off as very strong, and you see her character and how she's the protector of the family, and seeing from the beginning to the end, like, I feel like Prue is the one who's kept her character the most. You know what I mean? Like, from the first episode, Piper's this very like fearful kind of person. Phoebe's this like wild, don't care kind of person. Yeah, and Prue was the one who was just always kind of taking care of the both of them, and she keeps that role throughout her entire time on the show. So I like it. I love it. I love that about her.
Yeah. So let's
She's
get
very fearless.
into that list I asked you to make. No, I'm sorry, I'm a liar. Before we do that, I just want to kind of give some historical context for some of our newer viewers. So the show first came out in October 1998. So I just looked up what other shows were airing on the WB at the same time so we could kind of get a sense of what else was going on in pop culture. So on Monday nights, they were doing Seventh Heaven and Hyperion Bay. I have no idea what that is. Of all these shows I listed, that's the only one I've never heard of. Tuesdays, they were doing Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was on its second season, and Felicity. Wednesdays was Dawson's Creek and Charmed, which I feel like is a really weird pairing. And then Thursdays was like their comedy night. So it was a bunch of half-hour shows. So it was the Wayne Brothers show, the Jamie Foxx show, the Steve Harvey show, and something called For Your Love, which I also have never heard of.
Yeah, I don't know most of those except for Buffy. I know we used to watch that when I was growing up too.
Yeah. So you've never seen Dawson's Creek?
No, I've heard of it, and I've wanted to watch it before, but then I heard something just about how horrible of a character he is and how it's just not, I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, the
I heard
main
that it just
character is the
wasn't that
worst
good.
character. The other characters are really great though.
That's
But
what I
that's
heard, and
another
I just was
discussion.
like, I don't know, I just never got to it.
I just think it's really interesting that like
Yeah, I'm not
that's
really
kind of
sure
the
about it.
show they paired with Charmed. Like I feel like it would have made more sense to do like Buffy and Charmed and then like Felicity and Dawson's Creek because they have more of the same vibe as each other. Like Buffy and Charmed, both supernatural
Oh
shows.
yeah,
Felicity and
definitely.
Dawson's Creek are like a high school show and a college show. So like it would make more sense to pair those together. But I'm not in
Maybe they
charge of the
wanted to do
WB in
just one of each.
1998.
I'm not sure. Completely different. It's okay.
But yeah, just a little kind of historical context of what was going on there. So let's get into those top 10 episodes. Do you want to list yours off? Start at 10 and then kind of work your way up to 1. I think that's how we should do it.
Okay. I don't have a list, but I forgot. I forgot you asked me to do that.
You literally said in the
Okay.
chat that you had a list.
No, I said that I would make one, but then I never did. I totally forgot about it. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But I do have so I don't know the names, but I know what episodes just really like stick out to me for no specific reason. So I would say probably the episode, let's see if I can do it in order from kind of when they happen. For some reason, the one that's always been like one of my favorites is the one where it's with Paige, Phoebe, and Piper, way later in the show, and they lose, like they like the monkey, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Yeah.
And they Paige loses her voice, Phoebe loses her hearing, and Piper loses her sight. I don't know why I love that episode so much, but I guess the whole concept of the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, I've always just enjoyed. So I liked that they did an episode on it. And I don't know, seeing how they came together from it in the end, thought it was really cool. So that one's definitely one of my favorites. No specific reason besides that. And then I love the one where the 7 deadly sins, they take it. I think it's just a hilarious episode, like seeing Leo all lazy, having sloth and everything, and the way they like it definitely, like, they picked the perfect sins for each character, and I just thought it went so well. And then obviously, because this is the love of my life too, the episode where Cole comes along. I love Phoebe and Cole. Like, I can't even narrow it down to an episode. Their whole relationship just makes my heart happy. And probably when they almost got married because of the ghosts that came into them. That episode, I've always loved it too, because by the end she decided that she actually wanted to marry Cole, and it was just perfect. And then of course the iconic, another obviously everyone's top, Leo and Piper. I liked when they got married, the episode Piper finds out she's pregnant. Just like key moments in their love story. I love those episodes, you know, like big moments like that. And of course the whole Dan coming along. That whole drama between them. I love it.
I'm excited to get there. I'm excited to see what I think of it this time around, because I feel like my perspective on kind of like toxic relationships has changed a lot recently. So I'm excited to see like which relationships I like more and less this time.
Yeah, it's crazy because I remember, you know, when you and I were here at my house and we were talking about kind of the different view on life versus like when you're in high school to when you're, you know, where you are now in your mid-20s. Like, I feel like we're probably going to have slightly different views on it because I have a completely different perspective and experience than you do, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah. So you want me to go through mine, or do you still have more you want to bring up?
No, you can go through yours.
Okay. So I listed like episode names. I came up with 10, and then I have like 4 more honorable mentions because I'm not good at like limiting myself. It's funny because a lot of the ones you brought up, I realized I really love those episodes, but I didn't list them, I don't think. So the first one I brought up is Ms. Hellfire. So I liked that one. That's the one where Daryl finds out they're witches, and it kind of goes through with like the beginning of the Bane character, who I really like.
I love that episode.
Me too, yeah. Part of what I love about it is like Barbas comes back, and he's my favorite villain. So there you go.
Me too, and Barbas never leaves. Like, he always comes back at some point in the future, and I love it. It's perfect.
Yeah, they're like, this guy's gone for 1,300 years. Just kidding. He'll be back next season. But, you know.
I know, they vanquish him every single season. I feel like, you know, and somehow he always comes back. And
yeah, he was vanquished at least 4
he
times.
He always has faith that he's going to make it through. I know. And I love it. I think it's so funny. Oh my God, when they that other episode, sorry, where Barbas becomes the demon of hope.
Oh my God,
because they like reverse
that's
roles.
On my list actually, but let me keep going.
Really? Okay, I'm sorry, you continue.
No, you're good. So episode my 9th favorite episode, I chose Charmed again. I really like when Paige first comes into the series. I like the way they introduce her. I thought it was really interesting. Number 8, I chose the courtship of Wyatt's father. So it's one of those key episodes in the Piper and Leo relationship that you were talking about. It's when they hook up and she gets pregnant with Chris when they're in that like parallel dimension. So I chose that. Number 7, I chose Oh My Goddess. I've always loved the like God and Titan episodes. I thought those were really good. I like the introduction of Chris's character in those episodes. I thought it was really like interesting. And the fact that they were still making episodes that good in season 5 says a lot about the show, because at most points, like in most series, it's dead way before then. The next one I chose, number 6, It's a Bad, Bad, Bad World, which, you know, is the one where they kind of reverse the good and bad sides. That's where he's the demon of hope. The next one I chose was The Good, the Bad, and the Curse. That's the one right before Piper and Leo's wedding, where Prue and Cole go into the Western. You know, I love a Western, so I love that episode. I also really like kind of the dynamics in the Prue and Cole like versus each other, because like at that point she's such like an epitome of like pure good, and like he's kind of like struggling between being good and evil. And I like the way they kind of play off each other in that episode, because despite how much they hate each other, they both love Phoebe so much. The next episode I chose is The Power of Two. That's another one of my favorite villains. I wish that there was a way to have kept him around longer. That one's Jackson Ward. And I love that actor. I feel like he appears as a villain in so many shows from like this era. And I just really like him a lot.
Yeah, he definitely has. I feel like I've seen him a lot and he's always the bad character.
Yeah. My number 3 episode I chose From Fear to Eternity, which is Barbas's first episode, where we first get introduced to the 13 witches being killed and all that. Number two, I chose All Hallowell's Eve, which is the one where they go back in time to make sure that Melinda Warren is born. And we also see that Phoebe and Cole were soulmates because of the C in the apple. I'll never forget.
I know. I never let that go. And you know what's crazy is that the C, that's why in the beginning, because I always think about it in the end, like, why didn't she end up with him if the letter was C? But then she still ends up with Cooper in the end, which also starts with a C. So
I think that was a cop out by the writers, but we can talk about that when we get there.
But whatever.
And then for my first episode, I chose Pardon My Past, which is the one where like Phoebe's past life is trying to kill her and they go back to the 20s and everything. That's probably my favorite.
I love that one too. Those are all really, you're saying them and I'm like, oh my God, these are some of my top too. It's like I can't even narrow it down. They're all just really good. Like I love a lot of these episodes.
And then these were like my 4 honorable mentions that I couldn't get into the top 10, but I chose Dead Man Dating. That's one of my favorite episodes. That's also an early episode, so we'll be talking about it soon. That's the one where Piper is dating like the ghost guy. I love that one. That
the Chinese one where he died.
Yeah. Yeah, the actor, I forget his name, but he's the one who plays Harold in the Harold and Kumar movies.
Yeah. I forget his name too, but I love him in those movies too.
Yeah. Then that 70s episode, which is the one where they go back in time to when their mom is pregnant with Phoebe. And they're like trying to stop that warlock from killing them and like making that deal with their mom.
Yeah, Nicholas or something, right?
Yeah, Nicholas, yeah. Then the next one I chose was The Day Magic Died, which is the one where Wyatt was born and they all lose their powers.
Oh, I love that. I love that episode. All of like Piper's pregnancy with Wyatt was such like this crazy, like there were so many good, important episodes during her pregnancy. And like, I feel like Wyatt got so much more attention than Chris's pregnancy ever did. Like there was only like 3 episodes that she was pregnant with Chris, and it like makes me sad. Like I wish they had a little more detail with that one too. But I felt bad for Chris.
Partially because, you know, like that's when Holly Marie Combs was pregnant in real life, so they also had to work her maternity leave into those episodes and work around her real life pregnancy, as opposed to when they were just like pretending she was pregnant.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. I figured that's what it was, because it was kind of obvious that she was actually pregnant in that other episode. So I figured that was just kind of why it happened like that. But it also like it's kind of funny because it also still plays into the character and the idea that like Wyatt has so much more attention than Chris does, because even that one episode where Chris is like, what? He had powers from inside the womb. Because like it's just always been like that, and it's been their roles their whole life anyway. So I guess it works for the dynamic of those two.
Yeah, I think that's something we could talk about also, just like the sibling dynamics in the show. I mean, you and me, we both have a ton of siblings. Like, what do you think of the different sibling relationships and kind of how it portrays
Yeah, I mean, besides, the charmed ones and Wyatt and Chris, what other siblings really, I feel like, oh, there's also Christy and or Chrissy
Billy?
and
Yeah.
Billy. Yeah. Yeah. Um I feel like all of the siblings in the show, no matter what, like even in the beginning, Prue and Phoebe, they had their differences, and even along they always kind of clash a little bit. Um but there's always that love and that protection for one another, and then there's Piper and Paige, and Piper's not so hot about Paige coming along because obviously she just lost Prue, and that causes some clash too, but in the end, there's still all that love, that sibling love there. And same with Wyatt and Chris. Even when Wyatt was evil, all Chris wanted to do was save him, fix it. And then with Billy and Chrissy, that whole thing where she was kidnapped and she spent all that time trying to find her. So I feel like along the way, I love how they show these kind of realistic differences, and sibling kind of rivalry, but still manage to make it obviously supernatural version, but it's still, I think, something that we can relate to. And I don't know, maybe that draws me to it a little more because I love when those things happen. I think it builds their character really nicely.
Yeah. I really like, kind of like you're saying, I appreciate the way they kind of do the family dynamics in the show where they seem to always have like these issues with each other, but in the end, they kind of always come back together and they're always going to do like whatever it takes to kind of save each other. Like you mentioned with obviously the Chris and Wyatt situation. And I think also going back to the Billy and Christy, because like even when in like the final couple of episodes, Billy knows that Christy's evil and kind of has let go of their sistership and is kind of rejoining the Charmed Ones. Like she still doesn't want to lose Christy, and it's just such a sad thing that like she has to because she's too far gone. And I think that the way they kind of portray that kind of heartbreak in her, I think it could have been explored a little more. But then again, Billy's kind of a side character, so it wasn't the most important thing happening. But I still did like
Yeah.
that plot line. And maybe when I rewatch it, it's been a while since I've seen it. I'll feel more completed by it, but kind of as I'm remembering it now, I feel like maybe a little more could have got on there. But it's still like an interesting dynamic that they built.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing I noticed while watching the show again, I mean, this was so when I used to watch it when I was younger, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for Piper and Leo to start, or Cole and Phoebe to start, or this to happen, or this to happen. And I was like, it takes so long. I felt like I feel like when I was younger, I thought it was really dragged out. I didn't have the patience for it, I guess. But when I rewatched it when I was a little older, I noticed like how quickly everything starts to unfold. Like Piper and Leo kind of get together from the start, and Cole comes along pretty early in the show. Like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of these things that I thought took so long to happen a little bit quickly, but I think it's because they have such a smooth introduction and transition, and they have things along the way, like barriers, issues that they have to work through, and it's so perfect. I love it so much.
So let's kind of going off this. Well, who are your favorite like relationship pairings from the show? Like, which ones did you like the most?
So for me, I feel like Piper and Leo is always the very iconic, like they always hold a special place in my heart. But I have to say Phoebe and Cole is my favorite.
No, I'm on the same
No
board.
doubt. And
I
I
feel
love
like,
Andy and Prue as well. They all have some good relationships.
yeah, I think Piper
I
and
don't know if
Leo is
it's
like
like
the safe choice.
I feel like they've had to go through so much together.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like Phoebe and Cole, they had so much drama, and the way they like fought to the end no matter what for each other. That love was so passionate, and it showed that. And I love it.
Yeah, and that reappearance in season 7 when he's like the ghost and meets up with Piper and is so clearly just like still in love with Phoebe. I'm like, whoa, like, okay.
His love never goes away, and it makes me so sad because I remember when Cole finally dies after having turned evil, the fact that they even turned him evil when he killed the source and started receiving his powers breaks my heart every single time. And when they finally vanquished him and Phoebe finally moved on, and even that, like, and he still gets like re-mentioned, you know, like in that episode, or in that episode where I think his name is Drake, where Drake comes along and he's this demon that Phoebe falls for, and Cole was the one who put him up to it to try and reignite her, like her love in general, like just wants her to open her heart again. And it just shows like in the end Cole only cares about Phoebe still, you know, and it's never going to go away, and somehow they still don't end up together, which is heartbreaking. But
Yeah, I think they paint like this really interesting idea of like the human part of him like will always love her so much, but there's this like bad part of him that just never completely goes away. And that's kind of why I guess they can't end up together, right? As much as like I wanted them to the entire time. So I think the way like, you know, the
yeah,
writers and like the creators kind of were thinking about it, it makes sense, but it's just like it's devastating to watch, which like makes for a good TV show, you know.
oh, exactly, definitely does. Yeah, I agree. I think they definitely did a good job at showing um kind of why they couldn't be together even though their love was so strong. That idea of sometimes just love isn't enough, you know, it couldn't change that part of him that will always be there, his demon side, you know. So
Yeah, totally. And then some of my other favorite couples from the series, so like Prue and Bane, hot. I wanted them to be together, but you know, he had to go back to jail because he was a bad guy.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Prue and Andy, very sweet, you know. Watching the
I know,
first
every
episode, I was
time
like,
Prue and Bane, I know Andy comes along right away and snatches Prue, like snatches her heart right up. I like the way Andy comes in too. I mean, Phoebe, or not Phoebe, Prue and Bane definitely. I love them so much because they have that fire, that passion, and it's like just hot, you know. Um, it makes for a great couple, but also I think Andy and Prue, I love that they had a whole backstory from when they were kids, you know, like they brought it to their childhood and how important Andy's been to Prue her entire life, you know.
mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really sweet. And like that, none of the other characters kind of had that. And I feel like I've noticed that I like a lot of the couples that those three have been in, but any of the ones that Paige has been in, I feel like they've never been that explored. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was sitting there for a long time kind of trying to figure out, I'm like, who did I want Paige to be with? And the only person I could think of where I was really like actually kind of invested in the relationship was Kyle, like her love interest from season 7.
Yeah.
Because even with like Henry, I was like, I mean, like, okay, but it felt so rushed. All the relationships that started in season 8 felt rushed, though. Like Phoebe and Coop, way too rushed. Henry and
The
Paige,
last
way too
ones that
rushed.
they end up with were way too rushed.
Mm-hmm.
I know. The only one that I just completely forgot that she doesn't even end up with Kyle. Like, I don't know. I think Kyle was the one that I wanted her to be with the most. I liked Richard, but I was never that invested in their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, oh wow, why am I forgetting her best friend's name?
Oh God, I can't remember his name either.
But you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, who
Wait,
just
isn't his
always
name
is kind of
Glenn?
like featured. Glenn, yeah. Ew.
No offense
Sorry
to
to all
any
the
fans
Glens
out
out
there
there,
named
but
Glenn, but you know, it's not my
yeah.
favorite name.
But I loved Glenn. Like, and Paige, they had their whole history as well. But yeah, Kyle was definitely the one that I wanted her to end up with. Oh. But yeah, aside from that, I think those are just in general my top. Although I did love Piper and Dan together. I think they fit really well, but I don't know. Leo was always the one that I wanted her to end up with.
Yeah. I think I'm interested to see like when I watch it how I feel, but I think it's one of those relationships where like it's very clear that they were good for each other, but because they had already established that amazing like relationship between Piper and Leo, it's kind of like hard to root for that couple when they're like fucking up your favorite couple.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, as much as good as they were together and as perfect Dan was, and I did love the episodes where they were together. I thought they were very sweet and everything, but it you just expected Leo to come back. If they had never introduced Leo from the start, if it had only been Dan, then I feel like I would feel completely different, you know? Like I would be like, "Oh, Dan is the one I want Piper to be with." But no, it definitely was Leo. Plus the idea that they put someone kind of their guardian angel and had them end up in a relationship, you know, not just as like this side character, but Leo comes in and is really important to the show. I really liked that. Like it was nice that they ended up together, two magical beings, and it was like beginning to end their love.
Totally. And I also, it makes me think back to like, you know, the episode I named as my favorite episode, Pardon My Past, when they kind of explore how like even in the past life she had found both of them, and there was like this very complicated relationship between the three, even like in their previous lifetime, which I think is really interesting, especially considering the fact that, you know, Dan exits at the end of season 2 and that we never hear about him ever again.
I know, Dan's just gone forever after that. But I think it's fine. What other relationships were even, I don't think they even really had any. Like,
I think
no, like relationships. But another character that I think is really important to the show, and I like that they did this, is Daryl. It was so perfect. Like the way him and Prue become closer because of Andy's death, and like, you know, all this faith that he has in them. And then when he finds out they're witches, and the fact that he's a cop, he can help them out so much. He does everything in his power to help them whenever they need it, you know. And he's very like, I don't want to know about any of that crap, you know. And I I love it. I love Daryl's character. It did make me sad that episode where he finally was fed up and was like, I'm not doing it anymore, you know. And then I feel like he kind of stuck to it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I'm also interested to see like how I feel about like the propaganda, because like two of the main characters that they introduced very early in season 1 are cops, right? And you know me, I'm not a police fan. You know, I love my SVU, but my real life cops, I'm not in there. But they're also like detectives. They're very into like homicide stuff. So I feel like those are the type of cops that like I would be supportive of most of the time. But like I'm interested to see like whether the show is kind of like how it portrays them and kind of the light it sheds on just policing in general and other aspects of like 90s culture that will be going on. So I'm excited to see all that.
Me too. Definitely.
Is there anything else you kind of want to talk about? Any like characters or storylines before we, you know, stay away from spoilers for the rest of our...
I think I pretty much got it all out there, you know? I don't know. Oh, how could I forget about this duo? I love Chris and Bianca.
Oh,
I love them.
Yes.
Like
I
that
feel like
also has my heart.
Are the Phoebe and Cole of the future.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what they are. And I love it so much. And the fact that they had the woman this time be the evil one, kind of, I thought that was just great, the way they had that all set up. made my heart really happy. But other than that, I don't think that there's anything else I want to mention. Nothing else I can think of. Yeah, so I guess it's spoiler free from now on.
All right, awesome. So we'll wrap it up there.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. If you want to reach out to us or follow us on social media, we're on Instagram and TikTok at rewitched_pod. You can also send us an email to rewitched.pod@gmail.com.
Join us back next time for our first recap of Something Wicca This Way Comes.